What do you do when life delivers an unexpected diagnosis that could change everything? For Natalie Bedard, that moment came with the discovery of brain lesions, a diagnosis that initially felt overwhelming but ultimately transformed her perspective on life. As a single parent to 3 boys, including twins, and a retired security investigator, Natalie faced the challenge head on, embracing vulnerability and using her experience as a catalyst for growth. Today, as an energy healing specialist and the owner of Lift Oneself, she fosters deep conversations and connections through her podcast and healing sessions. Listen in on this episode of Life Jacked, the Resilience Podcast, as we dive into Natalie's inspiring journey of resilience, healing, and the power of authentic connection.
Sometimes life gives us lemons. Sometimes it gives us lemonade. Other times it gives us something entirely out of left field that makes us say, WTF. But no matter what obstacles come, there is most often a way out on the other side, and we are once again victorious. My name is Dr. Rowe, and you are listening to my podcast about resilience. Every guest shares a tragedy to triumph story to give listeners like you the inspiration to push through every single day. Listen now as my next guest shares how they were life jacked.
Hi, Natalie. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. How are you?
I'm well, and I really want to thank you for allowing me to share this space with your listeners. I take it very sincerely and deeply because the most valuable thing we have in this lifetime is our time. So thank you for allowing me to be a guest and share my story and have this deep dive of a conversation with you.
No, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Now, for the listeners who may not know about you, of course, I gave a little bit of an intro, and then I'm sure that you have your fan base that has tuned into this episode as well. But can you share just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, you really touched on a lot of it. I'm a solo parent to 3 boys. As you said, there's twins, so my oldest is going to be 30 in May, and the twins are going to be 15 on the 9th of February, so I'm in that teenage stage. And, I had to retire actually, it's 11 years now.
I just want to say something to the teenager. I don't know if you are aware, but I have 3 boys as well. And yes, my 2 older ones are in that teenage phase, and Lord help us. I just have to say, and I don't know if your boys are, maybe not your oldest, but at least the twins. I don't know if they have cell phones, but I tell you that the cell phone thing is a battle in this house. And I can tell you that I always try to figure out why I'm texting them or calling them, but they're not answering me, but they have the phone in their hands.
Right. Or when they have the do not disturb thing on, and it's like, really? I have to call like twice to get through this gatekeeping stuff?
Yes. Now, they have it on do not disturb because of school. And so I said, okay, I get that. That makes sense. However, you're not at school right now. You're at home. And I've called your name thousands of times, but they have their earbuds in. But anyway.
I know. We relate. And even I just got off the phone with my oldest, and he's like, they never answer the call when I call them. Like, they don't. Only when they need something, all of a sudden they're calling me, but they're not answering. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's quite the generation. And I have to look within myself of growth because I understand what I would have received from the adults back in my time would not be the same way that I can with my regulation and breathing. Sometimes they get a bit of the neurotic mom because I'm at my capacity, yet I have to ground myself of recognizing this is a different way of communicating. I didn't have cell phones when I was younger, so it's like, okay, how do we adjust with this and find a middle ground in it? But let me tell you, I have to ground myself in my breath a lot. So I'm right there with you. So like I said, I was a security investigator and I had to retire from that because of the brain lesions. I was told I was going to die when I was hospitalized, and I was released without a diagnosis. So that means without a plan. And what their prognosis for me, if I did survive, was I wasn't going to be able to walk properly, have mental function properly, and I was going to be dependent on, assistance of medical devices and everything else. Thankfully, I had the twins and they were 4 when this happened. And anybody that has children, when they're a young age, they spark a different part of life in you, a different part of vitality, a different part of curiosity, if you allow yourself to surrender and allow yourself to release the BS. And when I say BS, some people are going to think I'm saying the vulgar part, yet it's the belief systems. There's a lot of belief systems that have us conditioned into kind of a prison of what we think life has to be. And children do not have that yet. So that's why they can enrage us, frustrate us, make us drained, because they're just engaging with the moment and not all of these conditions. So thankfully, the twins came into this world as disruptors. So they always challenged all of the conformity and being domesticated and question things. So it allowed me to engage in a lot of things. And, a year after this incident with being diagnosed with the brain lesions, I discovered meditation. And that opened up so much within my nervous system that was stored because there was so much childhood trauma that then just, it's like a tumbleweed. It just keeps collecting if you don't address the trauma, and it just keeps separating you from self and keeps separating you from your authentic self. So what meditation allowed me is to do the somatic releases of my nervous system and allow my body just to express and release these energetic charges that had been stored for decades, for me to reconnect with the self and reconnect inside my body, which, I still have to go through the process, because when you have experienced pain in your body, it's very difficult to go back and trust your body when it's the thing that's causing you pain. So to rewire that relationship and ask the body what it needs, what is it trying to signal to me that I can remove? There's some things that you won't be able to remove, yet there are a lot of things in our lifestyle and the way that we ruminate and we create psychological suffering for ourselves or deny ourselves from feeling our authentic emotions, which taxes the body. And the body keeps score because emotions are simply energy. It's something that your psyche has processed, yet when we were young, when we were crying, most of us were told, don't cry or I'll give you something to cry for. So we didn't even know how to feel these dense emotions in an authentic way. We were told to feel something other than what we were feeling. So then that added doubt, and we didn't know how to trust ourselves, didn't know how to trust our body.
No, absolutely. And I love what you said, that we have to release the BS, but like you said, it's the belief systems. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, because sometimes we don't understand the reactions that people have to certain events or certain things that may be said, and we don't see eye to eye, but we all have our own belief systems, and that belief system guides our behavior and how we respond to things. So I like how you phrase that. Now, I know you do a lot of breath work. You mentioned it earlier that you do a lot of breath work working with your children, and I think I've had to do a lot of breath work as well, even just life in general.
Yeah.
But I know that you do certain things, and can we do maybe one of the breath exercises?
Yeah, I would love if you would join me in a mindful moment, and we can also, invite the listeners, because many people talk about, taking a moment, yet when are we really engaging to bring this in our everyday? And so I would be honored if we can do a mindful moment and ground ourselves so that we can open ourselves even further into being vulnerable and open with this conversation.
No, absolutely. And if you are listening in your car, because I know a lot of you listen to this podcast while you're traveling to and from destinations. So if you are, I would say go ahead and just pause it and then pick it up later when you make it to a place where you can sit and be focused, that you're not driving or you're not in an area where you're going to be distracted, because I tell you, doing this breath work with Natalie right here, it really is beneficial. And I hope that you don't just do it with us during this episode, that you do it pretty much throughout your life. So anyway, if you were driving, just hit pause and just come back to the episode later. But those of you who are in a safe space and you can do this mindfulness meditation with us, please join us. All right.
Okay. So thank you for that caveat, because I do the same thing, safety first. So please don't close your eyes if you're driving or needing your visual.
Please don't.
So Dr. O, yes, exactly. So Dr. Rowe, I'll ask you and myself to get comfortable in our seating. And if it's safe to do so, I'm going to ask you to gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. And you're going to bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to bring the awareness of watching the rhythm and allowing it to guide you into your body. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up. It's okay. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just drop deeper into the body. Now, maybe some thoughts or that pop up in your mind. That's okay. Bring your awareness to your breath. Bring your awareness. Now taking one deep breath. Slowly. Dr. Rowe?
Yes.
How's your heart doing?
Wonderful. Natalie, I didn't even realize I was as tense as I was. Amazing. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
One of the things that's difficult for people to do is to be vulnerable. I was vulnerable right now in this moment. I've never done breath work in practice during a podcast episode. This is wonderful. So you've had to learn to be vulnerable and accept that vulnerability was okay. So can you explain kind of how vulnerability has played a role in both your personal life and as you've been doing your work with Lift Oneself?
The vulnerability has been my superpower. Thankfully, since I've been young, I've been pretty authentic, and I was always told I was quirky or kind of weird. Yet I always had people wanting to share their most vulnerable stories to me, and I couldn't understand, like, what is it about me that you're going to tell me something that you've never told anybody? Yet what I've recognized is the vulnerability allows us to be seen. In a world that we feel that we have to armor up and paint ourselves in a certain way to feel that we belong, we shun and we kind of guard the vulnerability. Yet once we can be in our vulnerability, that's where our authenticity is. The buzzword right now is being our authentic self. Yet to be your authentic self requires you to feel your authentic emotions. And that's where vulnerability is. And once you can start to allow yourself to feel those emotions, to hold space for it, that's where you have such a most deep, enriching relationship with self, within yourself. And once you can do that, you can then begin to listen to other people, not judge them, be able to listen. And just like me, you may not be aware of something, or just like me, you're making mistakes, or just like me, you're successful in this, or just like me, you may not even see your light. Yet the vulnerability requires you to go within yourself and be honest with yourself, which, if we're really honest about it, that is really a lot of warrior work to do, because we want to be perceived as perfect, as all together, that we don't make mistakes because of the conditionings that we have, that if we are these things, we're not good enough. Yet once we can be in our worth, not intellectualize and think, oh, I got it all together, actually feel it in our body that we are safe in this moment just as we are, then we can hold the space of the messiness of life. And we can engage in having relationships and relating with each other, not attacking each other.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's hard to be vulnerable. But I do believe that it's very freeing to be vulnerable when we hold on to so many things and keep ourselves guarded and protected. I don't know if it really allows others to get to know us. I know I was a much more guarded person when I was younger in my professional career with my coworkers. I just was like, I just don't want to share much about my life. I don't think it's any of their business. But then I learned when I started opening myself up and sharing, not, being careful to not be an oversharer. That's also not good. But I learned that once I opened up a little bit more to allow people in and to allow people to get to know me, and really it did wonders on me building relationships with people at work, outside of work, just by being vulnerable, just by saying, hey, I don't have it all together. And, saying, hey, I do make mistakes. I'm a person that a lot of people think I do have it all together.
Yeah. But, don't you like, it's like some of the pedestals other people put on you, and it's like, yes, really? Yes. If you only saw a sneak peek of what my life looks like?
Absolutely. Then it's like there are other people that when I say, like, no, this is what I've gone through, they're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. You're fine. You haven't gone through anything like that. And I was like, yeah, I have. Like, I really, really have. I just haven't shared it, out in the world 100%. I mean, I have now. I'm being very, very vulnerable with this show. Yeah. I've shared lots of things about my life and me and my children and past relationships and my family. But if it helps someone, I'm with it, and I can be as vulnerable as I need to be.
Yes. Where we're talking about vulnerability, and it sounds real easy. And for the listener that's like, yeah, that sounds real easy, but I'm not doing that. I get you. If there's not safety there, you aren't to bring your vulnerability out there, because there are people that will harm your vulnerability. And your nervous system can detect certain things. We have been told not to trust our intuition or our gut instincts. Yet when we can listen to that and we can honor our body, then it can start to disarm. Yet if you are going to go against your nervous system, that vulnerability, it will not be able to be revealed. So it takes a lot of work to be able to understand your body, understand your nervous system, and allow yourself to regulate, to acknowledge the fear of feeling your feelings and revealing secrets or things about yourself, or even your naked truth with people. Yet it's recognizing that when I reveal this to this person and I've created some sense of safety, the biggest thing is not what they're perceiving. It's that I don't separate from self within myself when the turmoil of emotions start coming up. Because when we feel embarrassed, when we feel rejected, when we feel abandoned, there's a tsunami of energy and turmoil and overwhelm that goes on in our psyche and in our body. And it's to find the tools to be able to navigate that.
And I think that's what prohibits people from being vulnerable. They don't have the trust in the relationship with the person that, they would like to be vulnerable with. I mean, because you got to have this trust. Like you said, because everybody, you can't give your vulnerability to everyone, because some people will weaponize what you tell them. And so you do have to be careful. You do have to use your intuition. And I love that you said that for the listeners, because I have young listeners out there who are still navigating, life and, trying to figure out their career and trying to figure out relationships as a young adult. And we do want you all out there to know that, yes, vulnerability is beautiful and it's amazing and it can do wonders for your relationships. But also be careful who you are vulnerable with is very true, as Natalie said, because everyone does not deserve your vulnerability.
Exactly.
So besides the meditation and mindfulness, what are some other practices that you've had to incorporate in your life to help manage the symptoms with your brain lesion?
Well, like you said, the mindfulness, meditation, a lot of people have the wrong definition of meditation. They think it's going to calm you down, when actually it's helping you have the capacity to experience life. It's not like life isn't, a healthy nervous system isn't about always rest and peace and just kumbaya. It's being able to have the capacity to feel the pain, to feel the life changes, to be able to pivot and adapt. And so in that, I've had to for me, healing is being able to shift your perception, because our nervous system, when it is dysregulated, it is all in negative biases. It's trying to find all of the problems. Yet, when you can find the regulation when it's being dysregulated and look for the possibilities. But that takes a lot of work and a lot of self-awareness of recognizing that you are triggered or dysregulated. So there's been a lot of body work of somatic healing, and somatic in being able to do dancing, doing art, doing nature walking. I also am a big fan of cold plunges, of heat and cold. And so the cold really helps me to regulate and offload a lot of the stress I may have been holding on, and allows me to come back into my body, because there's such a shock with it that you need to anchor in your breath to go through this veil that your mind creates to want to jump out of it, and allow there to be a regulation in adapting to that cold. It's not fun. It's very uncomfortable. It took me several years to be able to do these cold plunges or walk bare feet in the cold. Yet when you do, there's such an enriching, great relationship with reality, with nature, and with your body, and using your body as an instrument, not disregarding it and chastising it, actually honoring it and meeting it. With the lesions, my whole life changed upside down. Like, retiring at 40 was not in my plan. Not being able to engage with my twins full on was very frustrating. So anytime I wasn't able to do what I could do before, I was met with grief. And when there was that grief, it was having to reshape my perception of, well, what's here right now that I can appreciate? What is it that I can be grateful for and appreciate? And even when my mind wanted to shut it down and there's nothing to be grateful for, it's like, you're breathing, you're alive. Even though you may not appreciate your life right now, you are alive. So when the suicidal ideation would come up, it was meeting it and allowing it to have space, yet allowing myself to go through that veil and recognize the vulnerability just doesn't know how to feel that expression and that depth of helplessness. So there's been a lot of tools, but it's been always surrounding the body, the mindset, and not rejecting reality.
No, absolutely. Because it's so easy for us to want to go and hide when things are tough, right? You just want to get in the bed and pull the covers over your head and just wait until it all is all over.
And sometimes you need to. But sometimes you do need to.
Right. Just if you do.
Life has some big things that go on. Yeah, and your nervous system, when you are in that fawn or freeze state or, or overwhelm, it's like, okay, well, your nervous system and your body is shutting down to protect you. So there is a part where, you are going to be under the covers and go through that. Yet to piggyback, like you were going to say, you still have to meet yourself to keep showing up and getting up and making that first step and moving. And that's why having accountability partners and not doing this alone will help you, that you can open up and talk to somebody and let them know what you're feeling so that they can reflect to you what's possible for you, and allow there to be safety to feel these emotions that is overwhelming your nervous system with so much turmoil and so much energy that you don't know how to come out of this looping or this dense energy.
Yeah, no, most definitely. So you created your company, Lift Oneself, and you also have a podcast. So what inspired you to create Lift Oneself?
Well, once I started, coming back into homeostasis and, being released from my neurologist and them saying, like, I don't know how you got the lesions and I don't know how the lesions reversed. It gave me a sense of openness. And as I mentioned, like, since I've been young, people would talk to me and feel seen and feel empowered. And so there was an inner calling of, okay, create this space for other people, that a lot of people think it's on the outside of them for healing, where they're not being empowered to really understand themselves, understand their body and their uniqueness. So I meditated on, okay, if this is what is needed of me, provide me the path. And while meditating, that's where Lift Oneself came from. It was lift the ego, which for me is the defense mechanisms of the nervous system that barricade you from vulnerability. And once those defense mechanisms are surrendered and you can enter into vulnerability, you're in the one self, in that one connection that we're all connected in. So, and the reason why I have the butterfly is the metamorphosis that, it's not just the butterfly, it's understanding the caterpillar has to eat itself to get to the butterfly. And it's always a cycle. There's no arrival in this journey. There's always going to be this part where you're going to be the caterpillar, you're going to have to eat up a whole bunch of stuff, and then you're going to have to eat yourself and turn into goo in this cocoon, and then to get into being the butterfly. Yet being the butterfly, you lose your capacity to eat because all you can do is drink nectar. So there's always going to be grief and there's going to be rebirth with things in life. And being able to hold that balance allows you to surf in still showing up with life. So Lift Oneself, I wanted to hold this space, especially with the podcast, was removing the stigma surrounding mental health, that we could have open conversations like we're having right now, where people can see that there's other modalities that they can access, not just the mainstream of talk therapy. Because for me, talk therapy is great. It does its part, yet you unpack a lot of things, yet the majority of people, they repack it back into the suitcase. They don't get rid of the things. And how I mentioned what talk therapy does is it's like rocking in a rocking chair. You're doing some movement, but you're not getting anywhere. You have to get into your body and start feeling these emotions so that you can relate with yourself better. And you're not shutting down these emotions, because emotions are data. They're information. They're releasing. And if you had an experience and you shoved down these emotions and didn't let yourself feel it, well, when they come up, it's going to be painful. Yet just because it's painful, it doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity to go through that. And when you have somebody that can mentor you to remind you, go within yourself and you can feel this. You're okay. You're not alone. You're safe to witness this. And so I just wanted to be a witness to empower people to go back within their bodies and get into that connection within themselves.
Now, you also do energy healing sessions. So how do you help people navigate their own challenges and embrace resilience during your energy healing sessions?
Well, as we did at the beginning of this podcast, I start them off in a mindful moment. So we always have this meditation to ground And as you were vulnerable and transparent, you had said, I didn't even notice the tension that was going on. And I could have led into that to have you unravel a little bit more into that to better understand. Yet in my sessions, I will intuitively read the energy of what they're holding on to and allow them to give them the space that they give themselves permission to feel the energy, to feel what the body is storing so that it can be released. And a lot of times in my sessions, people do release tears because tears are not just sadness. They're a plethora of all of the emotions that are going through. And it's the communication of things that you're experiencing that cannot be put into words because it's too vast, it's too big. So the tears are the language of the heart, the language of the energy that the body needs to express. And it doesn't need to be understood. It's just that it needs a space to have expression and a release. And then all of a sudden people are like, wow, it's like a ton of bricks have been released from my body. Like I didn't know that I could be so light in this.
Yes, that's exactly how I was feeling. Like I said, like you mentioned that I said that I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't even recognized that I was 10, and I don't even know why. I mean, it could just be, coming from work today or whatever. And, who knows? But that was just in my heart.
It's heavy right now.
Lighter.
But if we're really vulnerable right now, the state of what's going on right now, we're bombarded with so much in the media, the things that are going on in the world, and you being in the States right now and everything that's going on politically and things are shifting, we energetically feel that. Even if you may not listen to certain things, your body is reading the nervous systems of other people. And we don't even hold space of allowing our body to release what it's been intaking from all the interactions that we've been doing from our day. And so when we can hold, and I just have a gift of my voice, my tone, that allows that nervous system to regulate itself. And it's like, is it safe to release? Yeah, it's safe to release. And that your analytical mind isn't shoving it back down.
Well, no, you definitely have this gift, Natalie. I mean, like I said, I can't thank you enough for that. And listeners, if you went through that mindfulness, exercise with us, thank you. And I hope it was freeing and liberating for you as well. And I hope that, maybe your heart felt a little lighter as you, went through the exercise as well. And if you need to, Natalie will share her contact information at the end of this interview, and you can contact her. And, I do resilience coaching. So, to lift people up and help them and be a cheer partner and a cheer coach, a life coach, but cheer them along and, through different things. But, you can contact Natalie if you need that part, the mindfulness, because you also need that in this journey of resilience through life, for sure.
Yeah. When I say energy healing, what the basis is feeling your emotions. And a lot of us don't even, we think our emotions. We don't feel them.
Well, like you said earlier, when you start crying and when you're young and people say, stop crying, or I'm going to give you something to cry about, or what are you crying for? I'm guilty of it myself. I have boys, right? And even you have boys, and we are guilty sometimes. I don't know about you, but I have of saying to my boys, well, why are you crying? Like, you need to toughen up, right? And now I realize and I recognize, because my teenagers, because their world is very different from our world, right? And so they're like, Mom, like, it's okay for us to cry. Like, we're showing our emotions, like it's okay. And I was just like, wow, that's really cool that, that my children are young men that can say I love you, can embrace someone, can embrace another man or another, friend of theirs, a boy, or, and tell them that they love them and that it's okay to express their emotions for one another in a safe way, in a safe space. And so I've learned a lot from them and this generation, because I guess we are doing the social emotional work for them that we needed and our ancestors needed before us. Because
that's what I was going to mention. Yeah.
Even though this world is still filled with a lot of hate, and it's been going on time right now. It's a little weary, and we got 4 more. You still got to go through this 3.5 years, but anyway, I don't know what's gonna happen. But yeah, most definitely. You were gonna say something.
And that reactivity, like to come back to, it's ingrained that boys aren't supposed to cry. Yeah. And if we understand nervous systems, create other nervous systems, and that generational trauma, the reaction that we as, African American people of color, if you go back and if you understand instinctively, slavery didn't allow for tears and vulnerability. So that work to allow that to happen, it viscerally feels like a threat in the body. So we get a reaction when we see that because it signals to us that is unsafe. You will be harmed in the world. I don't know how to allow you to feel that until we can connect in our body.
Right, because you'll be perceived as weak, right? And they don't want someone who's weak. We're supposed to be strong and sturdy and push through. And although, I have this podcast about resilience, but sometimes I do, wonder but where do we have the conversation where we're not always, hard and carrying the world on our shoulders, and that we kind of get to live the soft life sometimes.
Yeah, you see, for me, warrior work is allowing yourself to be soft and opening your heart when you've experienced pain.
Being vulnerable. That's it. Yes.
It's really difficult. And the resilience is having the courage to face the pain.
Yes.
When we don't want to. I know before we had this call, I shared with you, my friend just recently transitioned. Yeah. And when she was in hospice for 8 days, and even just the 2 years of me being her, caretaker and being by her side for the cancer journey, I had to have a lot of courage to face the pain, to know that she's going to transition. And I don't know how my psyche is going to deal with that. I don't want that to happen. That took a lot of resilience and a lot of courage to keep showing up and not cowarding and wanting to shrink. And when my mind would want to, it was, okay, use your tools and breathe and be in this moment because she's still alive. But knowing that, death is right here. So that, that soft life, we have to give ourselves that permission and change the narrative that vulnerability is strength.
Yeah.
Yet vulnerability doesn't mean to be passive. We can still give people no's. We can still hold our boundary and honor our energy. And when you're giving other people no, it's recognizing you're finally giving yourself a yes.
Absolutely. Well, Natalie, it's hard to believe that this conversation and our time is up. Oh my goodness, this has been such a wonderful conversation. But I do have to ask you before we close out, in your opinion, what is the best way for someone to start building resilience in the face of adversity?
What is the best way? Feeling your emotions.
Yes.
Feeling your emotions little by little, allowing yourself to feel them and let them pass through, not keep shoving them down or numbing them. Start feeling them so that you can stretch your capacity. And that's where the resilience comes, is stretching the capacity to experience life in all of its changes.
Well, thank you, Natalie, for sharing your incredible story of resilience, vulnerability, and healing with us today, and carrying me through the mindfulness exercise, because I feel so differently than I did at the beginning of this call. So I really appreciate it. I needed it more than you know. Your journey is a powerful reminder that even in the face of daunting challenges, we can find strength and purpose. By embracing your experiences and using them to inspire others, you are making a meaningful impact in the lives of those who seek support through Lift Oneself's your company and your podcast. So how can listeners find and connect with you?
My website, www.liftoneself.com. On there, I have free meditation. So if they appreciated that mindful moment, there's a whole bunch that are free on my website. There's other resources and tools. And if they want to see if we can do one-on-one sessions, they can book a 15-minute discovery call to see if we can work with each other. I'm presently working on a course so that people can, have better relationship with their emotions and do that inner work in a container of community. I'm also, like you said, the podcast is Lift Oneself, where I have guests around the world. And I'd love to have you, Dr. Rowe, as a guest on my podcast to share, your experiences and bless my listeners also. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook under Lift Oneself also. So just putting LIFTONESELF and you'll be able to find me. And the majority of people, which we didn't get into and I didn't really address, is a lot of people call me Nat Nat. My name is Natalie Bedard, yet a lot of people just call me Nat Nat because when you want to do this resilience and when you want to do this inner healing, you need to have play in your life. So it's getting re-engaged with that inner child and that playfulness of untethering your curiosity. So I want to thank you for honoring me with this conversation and this delight, and I'm looking forward to having you on my podcast.
Absolutely. Well, Nat Nat, I appreciate your insights on building resilience and the importance of mindfulness and authentic conversations. I look forward to seeing how you continue to uplift and empower others through your work with Lift Oneself. Thank you for being with me on Life Jack, the Resilience Podcast. I wish you and your family nothing but blessings and abundance. Please take care.
You too, and please remember to be kind to yourself.
Natalie NatNat Bedard, everyone. Be sure to join me next time for more uplifting stories and insights on resilience. Until then, keep pushing forward, embrace the journey, and remember that every setback can lead to a greater comeback. Dr. Rowe, signing off.